Get started, and we've got more than we can get done tonight, so we're going to see if we can get through in about 20 minutes, but probably can't. Appreciate you being here, and we have this one by schedule and 2 more regular classes, and then the last Wednesday night in May would be our celebration of all the things that we've looked at, and there probably will not be any planets or things like that displayed, no Avil barley, but maybe some of the food. We do have a fish head for the table now. I have confirmed that we do have a fish head, and so that sounds exciting, but it's not as bad as it sounds. Am I on here? Let me see here. No. We'll get started in just a minute. If you bow with me, we'll have a prayer. Our Father, we thank you so much for loving us, and we know it's the world that we live in. It's a challenge sometime, and we know that things are bad for so many people that we love, people that we care about, that we maybe don't even know, your family everywhere, others that are hurting. Father, we pray that we'll be mindful, and where we can and how far we can reach with our influence, help us to love and encourage and help all that we can. We thank you for those that are able to be here tonight. I know some that are here tonight still not feeling great, but we're pleased to see them. We pray that our study for a few moments tonight will be pleasing to your sight. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Tonight's lesson is Bible Customs Part 2, Roles of Women in the Bible. There's at least 2 smart alecks in my family. You know what Sandra asked me? You going to dress up tonight? Roles of women. Are you going to dress up tonight? Yeah. I thought there's a verse, Deuteronomy 22:5, that kind of forbid that in the Old Testament. I think it's Deuteronomy 22:5. Women should not wear man's clothes. Whose man's not sure. I don't know what is what anymore, so I don't know how you'd know if you're violating that in 2022. I mean, there are certain examples that would be obvious, but we're not going to do that tonight. My costume was a man's costume last week, and parts of it kept falling off, so we got through it. The roles of women in the Bible, and you're going to find by omission. I got all the way through this. I said, I didn't say anything about women preaching and teaching publicly because it's not in the Bible. And that covered me. I should have probably mentioned that, but it didn't. But what were the roles of women? Let's just see where the first slide takes us. Proverbs 31. You might want to turn to Proverbs 31. We'll be there for a while. That's a good southern term for as long as it takes. There was a movie, and I tried to make it be Gone with the Wind. I kind of tried to make it be maybe a Shirley Temple movie. And if anybody knows, I've been Googling this all week and haven't been able to find it, where the little girl's talking to like her mother or grandmother, and she says, you have a special verse in the Bible. And you go to Proverbs 31, and you look at the number of the verse, 1 through 31, and you find your birthday. Does anybody know what movie that's in or anything? Has anybody ever heard that before? Well, it's your special day if you're a young lady. Now, guys, we didn't dress that way, and it's not for us, but there's some wonderful things that are said in this. So Proverbs 31 is the chapter that we refer to as the virtuous woman, and that verse 10, really, if you're born day 1 through 9, those verses aren't so great, but days 10 through 31, pretty nice things to be said about you. And you say, he might not have written that just for me, but hey, if it's your birthday, claim it. Uh-oh, I don't know what Lorraine says, but I think it must have been funny. What number was it? 10? 10's a good one. I'm going to say a virtuous woman. My translation says an excellent wife who can find. She is far more precious than jewels. I believe the King James says a virtuous woman is more precious than rubies. Is that right? Or far more than rubies. And rubies ain't cheap, right? All right, that's where we start out tonight. Look at verses 12 through 16. These are some of the things that a woman does. And you might say, for some of you, that might sound like a slow day, but it sounds like work to me. She does him good, verse 12, and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She's like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. Sometimes that can be Jack's or Subway or Little Caesar. Wherever she comes from, she's bringing that food in. And if she doesn't, they're going to be hungry. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maiden. She's feeding her staff. She's taking care of her family. Look at this. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. And those are some of the things that just sound like all part of the job. There was a redheaded young man one time, and I won't call his name because he's kind of related to me. And he didn't like having to sweep the carport. And every step that he made, every stroke he made with that broom, he said 2 words. Sandy, you know what they were? Women's work. Women's work. And he took a 10-minute job and stretched it out to 45 minutes to an hour every time because he did not want to do it. Well, I'm going to tell you, this women's work right here sounds very tired. It's interesting, Greg. I'd love to have seen him because I know later on when he worked for you, he had to do some of that. And it's funny how your point of view changes when you learn to take on that responsibility. But these ladies work. Verse 18 says, just because it's dark outside, she's not through working. I call that burning the midnight oil. Her lamp does not go out at night in verse 18. Verse 19, I'm not sure what it says in the King James, but this says, she puts her hand to the distaff and her hands hold the spindle. Is that what? Distaff and spindle? All right. So Greg, since you're on it, what is a distaff and a spindle? I picked on you. If you know this, I'm in trouble. You're not supposed to know it. Let's just see. There's the distaff, and there's the spindle. And it's also called a rock. It's a little, kind of like a floating bobbin or something, but she weaves cloth with this little handheld instrument. We talked about the garments about not wanting to tear the garment of Christ that was one piece. When you got a piece of cloth big enough for a person to wear, somebody had worked. They had worked diligently on that. And that's from Proverbs 31. Here's what it might look like in a real-life situation. There's the mother supervising and the young girls, and that's exactly where we are there. Which one was that? Spindle, and this is the distaff. Is that right? I got them backwards. Yep. The distaff is the big one, and spindle is the other one. But that's I don't guess you have to know that to go to heaven, but it's kind of neat to know these little things to see. There was a lot, when we read those verses a while ago, we didn't even break a sweat reading what that woman was doing. Now I think we can appreciate a little bit more of what she does. All right, let's go to verse 22. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Now, I don't see any mention of Wayfair.com, Amazon, Macy's, or Dillard's. She's making these things. I'm not saying it's wrong to use those. I mean, I don't know where we would be. Our dogs would die of loneliness if we didn't have a FedEx or UPS truck in our driveway every day. I understand those people need to work, and I'm proud to support them. But she makes these things, and that's just amazing to me. Look at verse 25. She is clothed with dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. Proverbs 31:25. I got a few of these. In mine it says, she laughs at the time to come. How can you laugh about tomorrow? What is it that has to happen? In other words, you can say, hey, we're good. Did somebody say preparation?
No, who's in control?
You know who's in control, but you got the hay in the barn too. If it's still out in the field and it's storming, you're in trouble. Preparation. She's the woman that's making sure that this. I don't know that you can read some of this curly Q writing, so you don't have to. That's verse 25. The next slide that I have is 25 through 29. So we just read that verse. Look at 26 through 29. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. Now this is a woman that's putting up with a man and kids, and she's still able to say kind things. That takes some effort. It takes some growing. It takes some learning. It's not that easy. She looks well to the ways of her household, does not eat the bread of idleness. She doesn't have time. What's she do in your spare time? What spare time? Her children rise up and call her blessed. Now, I put a note in mind, that is, if they're before age 13 and after age 19, they might do that. Because there's some periods in there where I don't know. They're still kids and they're still alive when they're in those teenage years, but hopefully gratitude and some of those other things will return. I don't know if you faced that or not, but I've seen that even in a grandkid or two. Her husband also, and he praises her. Well, what I've been reading, he can go play golf or go fishing because she's done all the work, it sounds to me like. Actually, I'm sure he had plenty to do as well, but it's one of those situations where he wouldn't have been able to do this without her, all right? This one is an interesting silhouette, and you can't read that, but what's printed on this lady silhouette, verses 25 through 29. So we got one more verse to go there, verse 29. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. She's the best. She's the best of all of them. Verse 30, that one's a little hard to read too. The woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Proverbs 31:30. The reason all of this works for her is that she's walking in an understanding of God's will and trying to do what He wants. And sometimes it's the very things I described that make us frazzled, that makes us want to give up, that make us frustrated, because all these things have to be done. And yet she said, God, as Randy said a while ago, God's got this. And she's got that attitude. Can those things upset us in a day's time? Oh yeah. But they're there, and they can be, and some things have to be worked on maybe a little harder than others. Okay. Verse 31 says, "Give her the fruit." Let's see, fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. She reaps what she sows. The things described that she had done, that she had accomplished, that she did for that family, to the children to call her blessed, for her husband to praise her, were not accidental. And I'm sure she had some trial and errors and frustration, but you reap what you sow. If you don't do that, it doesn't get done. If you do it, you can enjoy it. Anybody got a special birthday from Proverbs 31? You want to tell us what your verse is? Sandra says, she looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. I am a bad influence on her, so she does idle some, but only because I encourage her. All right, we're quiet tonight. Okay, let's go. Did you find yourself anywhere in any of those verses? You might find yourself in this T-shirt motto that's on this next one. Somewhere between Proverbs 31 and Scarlett O'Hara, there's me. And I'm not selling T-shirts, but I did happen to see that one. And that's kind of why I kept thinking the Proverbs 31 thing was from Gone with the Wind, because here was a Scarlett O'Hara reference. But it's about 4 hours long, and I didn't want to watch it today to find out. So you fit in somewhere. Now again, you might not accomplish every one of those things 24/7, 365. But there are so many things there that says to be industrious, to be faithful to God, to take care of that family. And where would we be? We would be nowhere without godly mothers, godly women, godly wives that do those things. And this is a beautiful, hey, I don't even know who King Lemuel is. I don't know that he was even a member of God's family or his people at all. But somehow he had learned some pretty good stuff about women to give us this picture from Proverbs 31. All right. Women in Scripture. That's one of those colors that Sandra asked me to stop using, and I didn't make it. In fact, I've got 2 screens like this in a row. These are some that we're just going to mention and discuss. You have a question about them, we'll talk about them, but we're not going to look up all these verses right now. Miriam was the sister of Moses and Aaron. And after the Red Sea victory, she took a tambourine, took the women, and they sang, and sang, I think they danced, but she led them in something that apparently was appropriate as a victory celebration. That's one picture of women taking leadership, not over men. You don't see that, but over the women. Who was Deborah? Well, Deborah, you are. Did you read what that says about Deborah? That's a full-time job. She was a prophetess, which means that God gave her a message to speak to some people at certain times. She was also a wife. So there's 2 full-time jobs right there. She was a judge, 3 full-time jobs. We know, judge, that's not something, that was one of the things that almost was the ruin of Moses till he got some people to help him with judgment. She was a prophetess, a wife, a judge, and a mother. And again, Deborah, I would ask, what do you do in your spare time? Not spare time there, but a wonderful example of juggling. How many different hats do you wear? Sometimes one is plenty, but there are people that wear many, many hats, play many different roles. Huldah, she was also a prophetess and wife. She's there in 2 Kings 22. Sarah, now this is paraphrasing. You can read exactly. She had a plan for what to do, and with Ishmael, and Abraham was upset about it. He didn't like the way things were playing about. And this is something basically, I feel like I've heard this a lot and had to hear it. Just listen to your wife and do what she says. That's not word for word what God told him, but if you look at Genesis 21:12, just Sarah's right on this. Do what she says if you want. And that's pretty good recommendation for God to take her and to explain that. All right? Anybody got a question about any of these? These are just some of the people we found in the Bible. Mostly these are in the Old Testament. All right? Abigail. She negotiated a peace between David and Nabal. Anybody want to tell that story? I know Sandra knows it because she was telling it to class the other day. Nabal, David had stayed and had asked for help. He had been nice to Nabal's men and, didn't know him anything. And then he came and asked for some blessing. And Nabal said, "Who are you?" Pretty much what he said. Who are you? So what he sent back to David, the message he sent back, did not go over well with David. David got ready to go and kill him, Nabal and all his men. But Nabal's wife, she fixed, jelly biscuits or something. She fixed some bread. She fixed some bread and went there and gave them something to eat. And she warded the whole thing off. She stopped it. Eventually, God did kill Nabal because he was not a good guy. And Abigail ended up being married to David. I don't think that was anybody's plan, but it did happen. All right? There are women who served as manual laborers when the tabernacle was being ready. If you want to read something that is difficult to read, but it is so meticulous, go back and read and see the things that they had to sew, the things they had to put together for all the trappings and all the curtains and all the coverings in the portable temple, if you will, the tabernacle. And it says in that verse in Exodus 35:25, they spun cloth for that tabernacle. The women did that work. Now, they had skilled craftsmen to do some of the iron work and the gold work, but the women did these. We've already looked at Ruth one night. She was one who worked as a gleaner. What's a gleaner? What? It's after the fields have been picked. She goes through there and is getting the ones that you didn't get. And they were told to leave some for that. Vance, when you were picking cotton, if you left what a cotton picker machine picks, you'd been in trouble, wouldn't you? It looks like there's a lot out there. It's probably not that much, but it looks like it. Okay. But that's the idea of gleaning, is going through there after the easy. Now, if I'm picking blackberries, I want to get the ones where there's not any snakes and I don't have to get my hand stuck a lot. Some people, Vance probably doesn't mind because he likes to pick blackberries. But I would just get the easy ones. And there'd be a lot left. This, when it gets down to this, it's hard work. All right? Adultery rules, the same as men. Leviticus 20, verse 10 says, if a man and woman be taken in adultery, you're supposed to stone them both. And I said, or were they? When you get to the New Testament, you remember the woman taken in adultery in John 8, verse 3? Didn't say there was a man taken in adultery. I'm not sure how that worked. Except they were just punishing the woman and they weren't going to punish the man. I don't think he could have been innocent if she was taken in adultery. So that was the rule, but somehow some things got stricter or changed by application, not by God's decree. Because I don't think God ever changed that for them. Look at that next verse. Women as illiterate. Deuteronomy 4, verse 9. Vance, would you read that in a minute? Deuteronomy 4, verse 9, the King James. because every other translation uses the word child or children. But they use the masculine term, and I want you to hear that from the King James when you get it, Vance.
Only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things thine eyes have seen, lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life. Teach them to thy sons and thy sons' sons.
Okay, teach them to thy sons and thy sons' sons. Now, I know most translations now say teach them to your children, but actually I looked that up as best I can. I do not know much about Hebrew at all, but I found a Strong's Concordance online, and it mentioned that that was definitely a masculine term. So I think the King James is probably right on that, and the emphasis was not to teach your daughters. Look at the little comment there from the Sotah 20 part A, and that would be one of the Talmudic scriptures. They have the Torah, the books, many of the books that we have, but they have the Talmud, which was kind of a collection of Jewish oral history that was eventually written down. And this was an attitude that, I don't know when that was written, but it says it's foolishness to teach Torah to your daughter. So if they didn't teach the Torah to them, probably they didn't teach them to learn to read and write. You know what the first state in the United States to have compulsory mandatory public education was? It might surprise you. Massachusetts. Jeff, you're shaking your head. Do you know why? The religious influence of the groups that settled there, they thought you needed to know how to read that Bible to go to heaven. And that's why they wanted you to be able to read. That's exactly where it started. And that was, you know, some of the schools today that you wouldn't think ever were connected with it were actually founded as religious organizations, some of the big-time universities. And that was the reason, that was the connection. So this, up to this point, we've seen a glimpse, some of the things in the lives of women. All right. Okay. I left that part out of my notes. That's good because I wanted to know. I've got that in my notes. I have to rewrite my notes, and then I don't always remember what they look like. Jesus, in his dealings, did not exclude women, and that was revolutionary. I was talking last night, I ran into Trey Durden, I was talking to him about this, and I was telling him what I was working on. I said, you know, the way Jesus treated women, it elevated them. We look at the Bible sometimes and they say the Bible picks on women. The Bible has different roles for women and men, but sometimes that's looked at in a negative way. But if you look at some of the things going on in the world, even in the Hebrew world, the time Jesus gets on the scene, he actually exalted the role of women. And one of these things about Mary, Trey made a statement I'll tell you in a minute. The Samaritan woman, let's turn to John chapter 4. John chapter 4. I had thought that the problem was that this was a Samaritan. And because there's a verse in there, John 4 verse 9, and I'll just talk about this while you're getting there. The Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealing with Samaritans. If you look in some of the Bibles in the footnotes say, or do not use vessels that Samaritans use, which would mean if you're going to get a drink of water from a person and it's unclean for you to drink, I thought the problem with him talking to her at the well was the fact that she was a Samaritan. Let's look a little further. What's that other verse? Verse 27. This explains it. Listen to how the disciples kind of go off on him a little bit. Just then his disciples came back. They marveled that he was talking with a woman. But no one said, what do you seek, or why are you talking with her? So the woman left her water jar and went away, and she said, come see a man who told me all I ever did. Can this be the Christ? She had met the Messiah and was teaching others about the Messiah because he didn't let their protocols or their traditions stand in the way. Now, I do think the Samaritan thing had something to do with it. That's why, but it obviously didn't mean that they didn't have any dealings, because where had the guys go? They'd gone into town to get some food. So it wasn't everything that was prohibitive. There were certain things. Yet here it is, they were shocked that he was talking to a woman, what will they think of next? I mean, it's going downhill if you start talking to a woman. That's kind of the attitude I'm getting from some of this. All right, let's go to Luke chapter 10. This is an interesting study at all. This is verses 38 through 42. Luke chapter 10, and there it is. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. Again, a woman listening. If these women weren't taught to read, if these women were really kind of not supposed to be taught, that's a little bit unusual. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion which will not be taken away from her. Jesus is saying that women need to know the law, that women need to study. Martha is so used to her role as of servant, and that's an honorable thing to do. To serve, somebody has to do those kind of things. That she was bold enough, this is what Tracy said, she was bold enough to interrupt the Messiah who's having a Bible study and say, look, we need her back in the kitchen. If you don't mind. I think that kind of feeds to the idea that while we know all people have to come to God on their own cognizance, that maybe at that time, that was not something she was expected to do. You know, there is a scripture that says if women want to know anything, let them learn at home, ask their husband. Yet this had been kind of an extreme example of that. Any comments on that? Okay. One more, Matthew 15. And these are just three examples where Jesus actually deals with women when the societal norms would have been not to do so. Matthew 15, 21 through 28. And Mark 15 is not going to be the same. I read that and it did not look right. And Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came and was crying, have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon. But he did not answer her a word. Now that's pretty much expected. Or a person, a foreigner, a Canaanite woman. That's pretty much the way he was expected to act. But look what happens. And his disciples came and begged him, saying, send her away. She's crying out after us. This is embarrassing, Lord. You need to make her be quiet. I added a little bit, but you could see kind of where they're going with that. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But she came and knelt before him. Now there's some humility right there. They're saying send her away, and he hasn't answered her, and she comes and kneels. You know, maybe we want God to do things on our terms, right our way, right now. And that kneeling, it doesn't have to be physically, it can be in your heart. But that kneeling, that humbling yourself, that will make a difference. Lord, help me. And he answered, it's not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. And that still sounds like he's just giving her one more shot over the bow. I can't give this to the dogs. Saying you're a dog. She said, yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Now you talk about that humility, it got cubed or squared at least. That humility level went up when she said that. And Jesus answered her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire. And her daughter was healed instantly. That was definitely within the norms, but he was so moved by her contrition, by her humility. And yet, it didn't deter him. Maybe he knew. Maybe he knew her heart and that was in there. I don't know. Comments on that one? I think that's very possible because this is how they wanted him to act. In fact, they wanted him to get rid of her. They said, Lord, just send her away. And this is embarrassing, Lord. We're in public and you're being talked to by a woman, a Canaanite woman. Okay? This is another T-shirt. I'm still not selling T-shirts. Well-behaved women seldom make history. You can buy that T-shirt if you need to. When you look at women in the Bible, you see all kinds of women, and several of them made history. Some of them were not well-behaved at all. Sometimes the definition of well-behaved means they don't act like you want to. That lady didn't go away. She didn't do anything wrong, but she persisted, and she was really annoying those guys. So this is where we get to the next little part, and we got time to do this. Women from A to Z. There's actually not a name, a woman's name for every letter in the Bible, but there almost is. There's A to Z. There's just 2 or 3, I think, U's left out and one other one's left out. The good, the bad, and the notorious. Several of these. And what I've done, I printed a list of all the names of the women mentioned in the Bible. Yeah, of course I did. And some of these are terribly hard to pronounce. And we're going to go all the way through this as much time we have tying this together and just play a game. I say we got several guys here now, so what we're going to do, we'll let the women, ladies, go first. And we'll start with the letter A and let you say, what you got to do is match me. I can't change. My answer's up here. It's already recorded. I picked at least one. On some of them, I picked more than one. And I'll tell you how many choices. So if a lady wants to guess a name that starts with an A of from a woman that's in the Bible, now not me, and just the women in the Bible, and we'll take one at a time, and I'll give you up to 3 guesses. And after 3 guesses, I'm going to let the guys have it. Abigail is a good guess. Let me see. That's not right, but it's a good guess. Another lady. Who said that? Ding, 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 ding. Anna is correct. All right, the ladies are ahead 1-0. This is when, if you're paying attention in the meeting, you make a move that the nomination be closed. Because if we stopped right now, ladies, you'd win. All right, guys. Yeah. She's really confident there. All right, guys, here's a softball for you. The letter B. All right, first guess for a guy. Bathsheba, ding, 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 ding. You talking that trash now? No, she's not talking so much now. All right, 1-1. We got to have there's not anybody that's impartial because we got, everybody here is one of those 2 groups. So y'all just keep it at 1-1. All right. Ladies, C. Hush fell over the crowd. Ladies, a name that starts with the C. Chloe is an excellent guess, but it's not it. I'm sorry, what was the second one? That's what she said. I'll just count that as 1 guess. I ought to count it as 2, guys. I got to be fair here. I need another C name, ladies. Candace of Ethiopia. Ding, 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 2-1. Boy, they're playing tough. They're playing tough. And if anybody wants to look at this later, I mean, I really didn't think that the list of names was something I could print, but I got it. All right, guys. The letter D. Delilah. What? Deborah. Delilah's a good one. Deborah. And there are 2 Deborahs, but I don't know how to differentiate, so I'm going to count that as Deborah. Is that all right with the judge here? Yeah. 2-2. All right, ladies. E. Wait a minute. Let me tell you ground rules on this one. There are 3. And so just say 1 at a time, and then the guys will get 1, then y'all can have the 3rd one. All right, ladies? Elizabeth. Who said that? Now, did somebody say Elizabeth? No? Yes. Elizabeth is correct. All right, gentlemen? Esther. Thank you, ladies, for telling us that one. We might have got it anyway. You never know. What's that, 3-3? All right, ladies, 1 more. Eve. The first one. First man Adam for... Okay, good. So, ladies are ahead 4-3. All right, guys, this one's a little harder. You get a G, and there's not a lot of them. Gomer, that's the only one listed. Gomer. I thought he was from Sylacauga and said Shazam. That's a different Gomer. That's a different Gomer. All right. I don't know that we'll remember the score, but it is even right now. Everybody agree with that? It's even. Okay. H. Hannah. Guys, You're fixing to get behind. I. And there's only one I listed. That's not a woman. That is, the I part was right. The gender, no. This is one I'd never heard of. Those are good names. Ichabod's a good name. I'm going to call time. I don't think anybody's going to get this. This was the daughter of Abraham's younger brother Haran, and her name was Iscah, I-S-C-A-H. I probably have read it, but I don't remember that one. All right, it's the ladies' turn. They have a one-stroke lead. They're up by one. Let me see what I've got for Jay. All right, ladies, here's a softball. Jay. Who said Jezebel? Man, they're getting the easy ones. All right. So they're up by 2 right now. For the men, K. All right, not everybody yell out at one time, guys. We still got a few alphabets to go through here. You know a lady's name that starts with a K, surely. Or not. All right, let the ladies steal. Katura. They're up by 3. I'm glad we didn't make a deal on this that we have to do something if they win, because Sandra said it's going. All right, guys, L. Lydia is incorrect. Leah, okay. Leah is correct. Okay, so that's what? They're up by 2 now? I know they were up 3. All right. Ladies, let me see what I've got on. I actually have 2 on the M's, so you can get one of the M's, but don't tell every M, because we might need it. I'm sorry, what? Mary. And there's so many Marys, I'm just going to take Mary. All right, guys? Miriam. All right. So we're still down by 2. All right. Going in, I think M gets us halfway through, but there's some of these letters are missing. All right, ladies, N. Naomi. That's up by 3. Guys, O. Not a lot of them around here, are they? Y'all better. Sandra's going to steal this if you don't know it. Huh? What? It's Orpah. Will you count that, or you going to be a judge and count that? Orpah. She counts that. All right. The ladies are still up at least 2. And she was sister-in-law to Ruth. All right, ladies. P. Phoebe. That's a good one, but it's not the one I chose. Penelope is not in on my list. You have to be the one I marked. So I picked one. All right. One more. Priscilla, that was the 3rd guess, but that was right. Priscilla. I'm not keeping score anymore. I'm so upset. All right, guys. There are 2 into the R's, and we're going to get one of them, and then the ladies have a chance to get the next one. Ruth is correct. Actually, there are 3 R's. There's still 2 more. Ladies? Rahab. All right? And there's a Rhoda, but she's not one I chose. Guys, we got 2 more guesses. Rebecca is correct. All right, that was pretty good. S, ladies. Sarah. That's that was the one I had, was Sarah. All right?
Sarah or Sarah?
Sarah. Depends on where you're standing. If you're at Ash Ridge, it's Sarah. If you're in Fett County, I know it's Sarah. But it can be Sarah. I like it. T. Is this the guys? Who? Is it the guys or the ladies? Guys. All right, I need a T. Tamar is incorrect. It's still the guy's turn. If you'll listen, she's trying to tell you. Guys, you get 3 guesses. We got 2 more. Tabitha is correct. Thank you. Glad you just thought of that. All right, ladies. Hey, we're not going to win anyway, so we might as well take everything we get. V, ladies. Vashti. That's exactly right. And gentlemen, Z. Oh, come on. No Z's? Ladies, you want to steal this one too? Nope. That's the warrior princess, isn't it, Xena? That's an X, anyway.
I think like there's a Zipporah.
Zipporah is exactly right. All right, that's the buzzer, but let me see if I got 2 more quick slides. There was a guy that read a passage from Isaiah 3:16, and it talks about all the way the women dressed up, and he referred to them as real housewives of Israel. And they were painted up, they were fixed up in all kinds of ways. But last week we looked at a couple of verses, and this is kind of a modern day interpretation of that. But it says in the New Testament we're told we have Christ's righteousness, and it's far more beautiful than outward carnal trappings. 1 Timothy passage and 1 Peter passage talks about how we're to dress and how we're to behave, the image that we're to set. And it all becomes, again, on ownership, who you're trying to prove. This is one, gentlemen, if you don't know this yet, he who finds a wife finds what? A good thing. If it's a good wife, I guess that'd be true. I mean, there may be exceptions to that, but that's one that would fill this role. The Bible, it's different, maybe, the ideas that we think of about women that is in the Bible times. Jesus did put women, and in society itself, probably there weren't a lot of places that would have had the conversations he had, but he came to seek and save the lost. Thank you for your participation, guys. I'll try not to have any more games because I think we're just going to have to get loose to losing, and I don't like that. Thank you. You're dismissed for a few minutes.
Okay, it's time for us to begin. We appreciate so much your presence. This stand makes me a little nervous. I didn't used to do that for some reason. It reminds me of a story one time. This guy was quoting a verse that said, "I come," and he couldn't remember the rest of it. And boy, he'd lean over, "I come, I come, I come." And that thing turned over and he landed on somebody on the front row, and he apologized to him, and the guy said, "Well, I should have moved. You said you was coming 3 times. On our announcements tonight, I was just talking to Brenda Hicks, and probably you have heard about the lady that was killed by a pack of dogs up in, was it Colbert County? In Franklin County. But she used to work here at Double Springs. And please remember that family. I can't imagine hardly, and that happened, down at Jasper a year or so ago, where somebody was killed by a pack of dogs. And so just heart breaks for folks, and remember that family in your prayers. And some of you, I see you shaking your heads, you knew her when she was here, and especially Brenda worked with her. On our sick list, Carolyn Daniel remains, or she was carried to the hospital yesterday at Princeton. And Carolyn, the esophageal cancer is stage 3, and she has stomach cancer that is quite deep into her stomach from her esophagus. And the doctors say that she needs chemo and radiation treatments. They will have to insert a feeding tube, and then if her cancer reacts to that favorably, they would do maybe surgery later on. But I don't know. I don't know what Carolyn will do. So please remember them in your prayers. Jana Benson started her dialysis on Monday, and she's been going to Birmingham every day this week and learning how to do dialysis at home. And she hopes to be able to do it at home Friday for the first time. And she has been put on a transplant list at Vanderbilt, at UAB, and also at Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. And so please remember Jana. And Jerry's had a little better week this week, and Janice has had to be with Jana at the clinic every day in Birmingham. And Jerry has, Janice said he might have done better without her there than he has with her there. So she's kind of questioning about her care. No, not really. But Brother Ted Rayleigh, saw Ted today just a little bit, and he had been to the wound doctor in Russellville, and then actually went on to the eye doctor in Florence. And doctors keep telling Ted that he is improving, but he says his leg and foot hurt so bad that it's hard for him to really grasp that he is improving. Sister Shelby Edwards, please remember Shelby in your prayers, and she is seeing a wound doctor with her cancer. Brenda and Frankie's little great grandbaby is better, and Brenda says for a 2-year-old on steroids, it's a full-time job for somebody that's a great grandparent. My mother will be going tomorrow. I'll be taking her back to the doctor tomorrow to get biopsy report, and please pray for us that we'll do the right thing for her. My brother that had the stroke last year was down here for about 3 weeks and worked like a slave while he was here, and started having some problems going home. He went to the hospital. I mentioned that on Sunday. He went Saturday, and they were afraid he was having another stroke, but the neurologist didn't think so. And on Monday, they determined that it was shingles, of all things. And the shingles have just covered his head and got down in his left eye, I think. And they moved him today to Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit because they're afraid he may lose his eye. Doc Mike could tell us, I've never heard of anybody that lost an eye from shingles, but I know Mr. Austin Tidwell last year called me one day, and he said, I have never in my life had anything like it, like a torch in your eye. And he said to just make you want to stick your head down in a bucket of ice water and leave it. And but my brother could almost vouch for that, I think. Please continue to remember Joni's sister, Dwayne Nix. Kobe's granddad is still in the hospital in Tupelo. And Brother Rob Ray had another treatment yesterday and kind of got an encouraging report that his cancer is shrunk some and no new spots. And that sounds good. Reba was not able to go to dialysis on Monday, and she was not able to drive today. And Scott called me early this morning, and we got her down there, and I want to thank Greg for going back and picking her up. And Reba needs next week 2 drivers, or 2 days, on Tuesday and Thursday. Isn't that right, Scott? Tuesday and Thursday. She can hopefully drive herself to dialysis, but she needs somebody to take her to Birmingham on Tuesday or Thursday of next week. Will Mathis is some better. I think he went to work tonight, didn't he? Okay. Joyce Mulligan. Joyce, it's so good to see you with us tonight. Lynn Kershaw is some better, and Lynn's with us tonight. The West, let's continue to remember them. Brother Tim Mulligan, the Cavenders, Catherine Cole, Randy Harbin, Wilma Patterson, and we just have lots of folks that have been ill. Miss Noma is better, and she's here with us tonight, and today is her birthday. My, Miss Noma, she has been such an encouragement to many of us, all of us, and so Miss Noma, happy birthday from all of us, and we love you and thankful that you have celebrated this day today. Thank those who work with the Meals on Wheels. We had probably 10 different people working, from Justin and Ernie grilling for us, and lots of other folks that worked, and we thank all of them. And we've been doing this now for almost 2 years, I guess about 2 years now, or maybe a little over 2 years. We skipped a little bit of time there at one time, but thank you so much. Actually picked up a new family or 2 today, and we're thankful for that. Our poke salad supper will be Friday night. Hopefully the bad weather will get out of here before Friday night at 6:30. And tonight, there is a ton of poke. I got in a good poke patch. And I told somebody I left a little blood in that patch, and probably picked up a few chiggers and maybe a tick or 2. I carried a tick to Georgia the other day from here, and but I got a good hot shower and hopefully got rid of those. But there is a ton of poke, and we need some poke cookers. And there are also 2 bags of greens. They're mostly kale, rape. And if somebody wants to take those 2 bags of kale and rape and maybe 1 bag of poke and mix that together, I'm telling you, it's mighty fine. And but we need some poke cookers if you're a poke cooker. And most times our poke is mixed with eggs. And Randy and myself, we put 7 dozen of eggs back there. And so pick up you a dozen of eggs if you're going to be one of our poke cookers. And there's tons of other stuff you can bring, and there's tons of stuff that'll be here to eat if you don't like poke. So just come and enjoy the fellowship Friday night, 6:30. If you don't know what to cook, just bring a cake or something, or a jug of tea or a Coke, and there'll be lots of beans and greens and cobblers and blackberry cobbler. Ann, she always does such a great job with blackberry cobblers, and so I hope you come and we enjoy that time together. There'll be a men's business meeting Sunday at 5. Is there a ladies' Bible class, or is it's history for the year? Okay. Okay, one more, but not this Sunday. Remember the leadership seminar on the 14th at Heritage Christian, and especially remember the emotional and mental wellness seminar here on the 21st. That'll just be 2 weeks, I guess, from Saturday. And so that's coming up pretty quickly. That night, on Saturday night, is the Maywood Benefit Dinner on May the 21st. And, it's going to cost more this year, because you think how much food has gone up. And it's going to cost more this year for us, and we've not raised camper fees, but it's going to cost more this year for us to conduct Maywood Christian Camp. And so if you want to help with that, at the Maywood Benefit Dinner on May the 21st. And also on May the 22nd, on that Sunday, will be honor for our only graduate of high school this year, and that will be Ashton Thomas. And at the dinner that day on the 22nd, that will also be honor time for her. We have visiting with us again tonight, Sister Rawls, and she is the owner of Plants and Roots Farm. And I don't know if you've ever been by there. I like to just go that way just to look at it when I pass by there, down toward Brilliant. And she has brought some strawberry salsa. And if you would like to try that, there's some in the fellowship hall. And everybody, let's try that tonight. And this sounds good. Anything with strawberry in it is worth listening to. Okay? Our prayers tonight will be led by Brother Jeff Cole first and Brother Frankie Hicks. So at this time, let's pray, and then we'll have a song. We have 78 tonight.
For all those that last we ask, Heavenly Father, you open our house, families, all loved ones, to those that have upcoming guests, things that are medical, to those to the leaders of our country. Pray that, Father, they always with those that train yes, Heavenly Father, that you will for all the blessings. Pray, Heavenly Father, that you will always all these things we ask.
The 667 is finally blood. Listen up.
Would you be free from the burden of sin that's power in the blood? Would you or evil a victory win? There's one. There is power. Song will be 454. 454.
Someone once said that we're always complaining that our days are few and acting as though they would never end. You think about that. We have kind of sometimes a warped understanding of time. I don't know if you realize it or not, but time is not on our side. I mean, it's just not. Time is not on our side. James said in James chapter 4, Go to now, ye that say, today or tomorrow, and we'll go into the city and continue there a year, buy and sell and get gain. For whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow, for what is your life? It's even a vapor that appeareth for a little time, and then it vanisheth away. But that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, then we'll live and do this or do that. In Luke chapter 12, you remember the story of what's referred to as the rich farmer. You remember his goods had just produced so well that year. He had a problem. He didn't know where he'd store them all. He said, this will I do. I'll solve this problem by tearing down my old barns, and I'll build bigger barns. And I'll say to my soul, take thine ease, eat, drink, be merry, for thou hast goods laid up for many years. And the Lord said to him, thou fool, this night shall thy soul be required of thee. Then who shall these things be? We've seen that scenario happen over and over again. You think, well, it hasn't happened to me yet. And it might not ever happen to you just like that. But there's probably around 95,000 people that were last night alive at 8 o'clock that tonight are not alive. About 95,000 in our world. Psalm 39, I want to read 2 verses, verse 4 and verse 5. Lord, make me to know mine end and the measure of my days, what it is, that I may know how frail I am. Behold, thou hast made my days as a handbreadth, and mine age is as nothing before thee. Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity. I remember reading a little article by Dale Jenkins many years ago, and it was entitled, We're All Terminal. He talked about how that he had talked to someone who had cancer, and they said, I'm terminal. And he talked about how we're all terminal, and that's true. We're all terminal. May God help us to make Christianity a lifestyle and not just a pastime. For a lot of people in the world, they want it to be a pastime. And it must be our way of life. Are you a Christian tonight? Not, you're missing out on the greatest life there is. And you do not have hope of even a life that is far better that you could have if you were a Christian. You've heard His word, don't you believe it? Aren't you willing to turn from sin, to confess that Jesus is God's Son, to be immersed in water for the remission of sins? If you've gone back in the world and turned your back on the Lord, and that hope, that state you're in is worse than before. And that's a sad thing to think about, but you don't have to stay there. The beautiful story of the Prodigal Son in Luke 15, he came home, started all over. The Lord welcomed him home. In fact, the Lord ran to meet him. And He'll do that for you if the need is there in your heart that you want to change. As together we stand and as we sing.
Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? It's nothing but the blood of Jesus. So precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Nothing can for sin atone, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Not a good that I have done, it's nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus.
Is there any other announcement we need to make?
burn at work. He's got to have skin grafts this week. We've got the trauma burns.
Okay. Joey Garrison, many of you might know him, has suffered an injury at work, a quite severe burn, and will have to have skin grafts at the burn center, I assume at UAB in Birmingham. Trauma burn, you don't ever know when you might wind on that floor. It's number 9. Anything else? All right, Brother Frankie Hicks will lead us, and we hope you'll want to be here with us on the Lord's Day. To think about 2 Timothy 1, verse 5. 3 generations of faith. We'll be looking at mothers of faith on Sunday morning's lesson. Sunday night, we'll be looking what are our responsibilities as a congregation to our elders, to the eldership. The Bible says quite a bit about that. Talks a lot about responsibilities of elders to a congregation, but what about our responsibilities to them? And these will be our 2 studies on the Lord's Day. So let's pray.
Study your word. Pray for things that we've said and done would be important.